Hi again, everyone. Thank you for coming in again to view another video from Mad About Madeira. Mad About Madeira, I should say. Don't know why I always want to say Madeira. Mad About Madeira. So I'm thankful for you coming to look at another video. It happens to be Saturday here in South Florida. Generally, I do these videos during the week while I'm at work and my mind is thinking about everything else but work. So today, I want to do a video that's going to be a bit controversial, and it's going to be less about Portugal and more about somewhere else. But I am going to tie Portugal into it at the very end. So stay with me, okay? And you'll understand why and why I'm, putting this video over. It's something I'm actually pretty excited about, or something, I should say, where Portugal comes in. I'm rather excited about it. And I'm excited about talking about Portugal in contrast to something else. Okay? So the first part of this video, for some people, it may be controversial. It's not intended to be, mind you. I don't want anyone to misunderstand my reason for doing this. Okay? Because you're going to listen to the video, and some people may be, oh, there he goes again, speaking about black, speaking about white, speaking about race. The video is not for that. But then again, I am the type of person, I want you to understand this, as you probably know. I do not necessarily back down from a controversial topic, I should say. Nor do I back down from something that may make some people uncomfortable. And this goes for, if you're just breaking the world down, well, not the world, but if you break down the Western world between black and white, I'm not above. I shouldn't say I'm not above. I am not going to back down just because some people may feel uncomfortable by something I may say. And this goes for both sides, okay? Because there are times when I say certain things, and black folks or people who look like me, they get all up in their feelings and they think I'm siding with the enemy. How could you diss with the white folks? And then there are the times I may say something, especially to Trump supporters, that I've been engaged in, and they think that I'm out to get whitey or something like that, and I'm not. But I just call things as I see them, and I hope that honesty could be respected or seen as such. And it's not me trying to go and hate on anyone, because that's not me at all. I think I've explained to you before that I take people as they come. I don't care where you're from. I don't care who you are. You understand? I don't sit around and think that every person looks like me in terms of my skin color mean me good, or that they're good, or that they're trying to do well by me. Okay? There are people out there who look like me who would blow my head off if they get a chance. And there are people who, here in this country, that if I travel just to the wrong city or showed up in the wrong town, I could most likely be strung up in a tree. Okay? So you have your bad and your good in everyone. I shouldn't say in everyone. You have your bad and good in every race, every group of people, and so on. If you're good to me, I am good to you. If you're bad to me, I'm going to avoid you. I don't care what color you are, what religion you are, or anything. But the type of person I am a people person. I will talk to anyone. I don't care if you're Chinese, Korean, Nigerian, Icelandic. I don't care who you are, where you're from. If I see you on the bench, I will speak to you. I will start talking to you. I love to talk to people from different parts of the world. I love to hear about cultures. I love to hear. That's the type of person that I am. So you're not going to see me like, well, that's a white guy over there, I'm not going to talk to him. Or that's a Chinese. No, I'm not into that. I'll talk to Mexicans. I'll talk to Nicaraguans. I do not care. That's my personality. I love to learn about people. So if you're coming good to me, respect. I'm coming good to you with respect. Okay? I just want to go ahead and preface this video by mentioning all of that. So this is to avoid anyone coming in here, well, why is he? No, I'm not doing any of that. But here goes. And this topic may not be comfortable for some people. Okay? Right now, there's a situation going on, or situations, I should say, going on down in Africa. Okay? Now remember, Portugal is going to be tied into this. Okay? So For my Portuguese viewers, my Madeiran visitors, don't start freaking out and panicking. Stay with me. You'll see where this is going to go. So this is situations, I should say, but the biggest situation right now is going on down in the country of Niger in northwestern Africa, on the continent of Africa in its northwestern section. Now, why is Niger trending right now in the news? Now, it's been going on for a while, but Niger is a little bit different. And the reason why Niger is a little bit different is because it's one of the countries that produces most of the world's, or one nation that has a lot of uranium deposits. Now, you may ask, what is uranium? I really cannot give you an answer. All I know is that uranium is something that countries use for their nuclear power. It could be for nuclear weapons, or it could be for nuclear power that provides electricity and other energy sources for certain countries. Well, keep this in mind. Niger was a country or an area of Africa that was under French colonial rule. And as a matter of fact, the area that Niger is in, stretching from West Africa pretty much all the way to East Africa, across east to west, right below the Sahara, is known as the Sahel. All those countries, Chad, Niger, and a few other countries in between, and Chad, Niger, a few other countries in between, were once under French control. But Niger, as I said before, contains some of the world's largest deposits of uranium. And if you remember what colonization is, or colonization was, still is in some places, it's another country basically holding another region or place in the world under their control, and while doing so, extracting resources or manpower out of that country or out of that region and using it for the benefit of the colonizing country. Well, this is what's going on, or what went on in Africa, of course, for quite some time after the scramble of Africa, but it's still being retained right now with France. So France more or less has Niger in its back pocket, okay, or had it in its back pocket. So it goes down, grabs all that uranium to power its own country. Meanwhile, Niger happens to be the second poorest country on the planet. Now, I may be wrong, but I know it's got to be in the top 5. Okay, one of the poorest countries in the world, and the majority of people in Niger don't even have electricity. Okay, keep that in mind. So France is there, and since its colonial days, France did give or did allow these countries like Niger to have their independence. But while having the independence, France still maintained a very strong presence there. Make sure they still kept their hands in the pocket of Niger. It's like, yeah, you're independent, you know? You're independent. Yeah, you're independent. But in reality, those places really were not. So France still has those countries tied to their economy and tied to their currency. So France goes down, is basically sucking out the resources, and of course not paying attention to the local population, which is a classic definition of colonization in Africa. A classic definition of how Africa was underdeveloped, if I should quote Walter Rodney, the great Guyanese intellect, okay, where my wife is from Guyana. Europe basically underdeveloped Africa, meaning that they were there, sucked out the resources, built up their economies, built up their countries, enriched their countries, and didn't care anything about the local people who were there. Remember, when the scramble for Africa took place, it wasn't like the Europeans showed up and said, hey, we would like to go ahead and get some of your resources, or we would like to talk to you about something, or we would like to do a project that we have going on and we wanted your input. It wasn't anything like that. The local people were not sitting at any table, the table in Berlin, when these European nations gathered to scramble or to go ahead and chop up Africa amongst themselves. The local population in Africa were not at the table. The Europeans didn't care what their opinion was. So France happens to be one of those countries that is still down there exploiting away Niger, a former colony of theirs. Okay? So now what is happening is that other nations are getting involved. And there's a new Cold War that's going on, or just a continuance of the Cold War. But you have the Chinese there in other parts of Africa. I don't know if they're in Niger. And now you have the Russians, more or less represented by the Wagner Group, which is like a mercenary, autonomous group that more or less works on behalf of the Kremlin back in Russia. So now that they're there, they're exploiting something, and they're spreading the information to kick off the instability that's going on by pointing out to the Nigerians that, listen, you guys are being exploited. Notice, look, the West, France, is looting your country, and they're benefiting, and you are not. Don't you see something wrong with this picture? So once this message has reached the Nigerians, and I'm sure they knew this already, but now they have the backing of a potent force, the Wagner Group, and they're coming in and they're putting this across into their heads. And the Nigerians are sitting there like, yeah, come to think of it, that's what's really going on for real. We need to stop France from doing this. They're not going to come down here and grab the resources, take it out of our country, enrich themselves, power their country, and we're still down here suffering. Now, you would think France would come up and say, you know what? Yeah, we're wrong. We shouldn't be doing this. All right, you know what? Let's do it this way. We will go ahead and we don't mind, or asking politely, can we do some kind of trade here? We'll get you uranium and we'll come back down here and build infrastructure. We'll build up your schools. We'll build power plants. We'll build hospitals. We'll build great roads. We'll build up your infrastructure while we help ourselves to some of your uranium. As a matter of fact, we'll show you how to use your uranium to power your own country. All right? We think there might be enough to go around. France is not coming in there with that kind of diplomacy. It's like just take, and nothing is going the other way. So France did have, and I guess you can say the West to an extent, the United States and other places, they had a friendly president in Niger to do their bidding. In other words, it's like they put someone in place, or they managed to get someone in place, someone they could influence and say, hey, look, turn a blind eye while we just go ahead and grab the resources. Now, what generally happens in these cases, and sometimes it's not always the side of the colonizers that's wrong, because this has also happened in Africa. A Western country shows up and says, we want to, or the Chinese, hey, we want to go ahead and get a hand on your resources. Now, it stops right there at that top level. The president of that country would be like, yeah, sure, you can have the resources, but I need to get paid for this. Well, all right, you know what? Here is $5 billion, or here's $100 million for us to get to your resources. The president of that country may not sit there and think about his people either, and rather go ahead and enrich himself and make sure his pocket is filled, and that money doesn't trickle down to the local population. Because remember, you can make these backdoor deals. There's no transparency. There is not like the president, in some of these places gets up and say, hey, France has come through, or Germany has come through, and they want to go ahead and get a hand in our resources. But guess what? I made a deal that's going to benefit all of us. Like a country like Botswana, which has done marvelously well in terms of them going to the table and negotiate when it comes to diamonds. So these presidents are not sitting there and saying, let's make a transparent meeting. Let's put this on television. Let our people see. We're making this deal, and the deal is going to be 60-40. We'll get 60%. France will get the other 40%. Or 50-50, anything like that. And look, when we get this and they provide the money for the resources, we're going to use this money to do this, or that. That doesn't happen. So what happens is that these Western countries or other countries come in, they make the deals with the presidents of the country. The information doesn't get trickled down. It stays up here, and the money that's passed over stays up here, and these guys just continue to stay rich and load their pockets, and their local people are suffering. If that's going on in Niger, I don't really know, but it wouldn't surprise me. So what happens is that France had a friendly president in there who turned a blind eye and said, look, take the resources. And I'm sure he was getting his pocket lined for allowing them to do whatever they had to do. But when you look around, the local people are still suffering. Anyway, the Nigerians have had enough of this. So they had a coup to overthrow that president, that friendly to France, to America, to Germany, to England, overthrew and got rid of him. And they replaced him with a person now who's basically saying, France, you're not coming down here to do this anymore. It's over. Done. Finish. France, again, not going down there and apologizing or trying to do right. Their way of doing it now is threatening war. Well, you know what? We're going to go down there and we're just going to go ahead and start a war down there because we want to restore order. And order means we want to put somebody back in there who's going to work with us. Not working for the benefit of the country, Niger, but working for us. So right now, Niger is on the precipice of war. And the unfortunate thing is there's an old African proverb that goes like this: when two elephants fight, the grass is the one that dies. And what's happening now, you have a bunch of forces in Niger. You have the Russians on one hand. You have Al-Qaeda still there. You have remnants of ISIS still there on one side, or all in there for their own reasons. ISIS and Al-Qaeda, they want to spread their nonsense, their propaganda, their religion, their religious ideas. They want to do that. Then you have the Russians who are in there, basically standing on the shoulders of the Nigerians and saying, see those Americans, look how bad they are. Look at what they want to do to you. You see those French people, they want to do this, they want to do that. But they have their own ulterior motives in there also. Then on the other side, you have the French, you have the Germans, you have the English, you have the Americans, like, we want to restore order because they want to also get to those resources, just like the Russians do. And along with that, in the Sahel, along the same region, Iran and Saudi Arabia, who have their own personal Cold War going on, are also in there getting into the mix. So it's one big mess. What it really comes down to is just a bunch of proxy wars going on. The United States are in there saying we're trying to stamp out terrorism. France is in there basically saying we're trying to restore order. The Russians are in there saying they're trying to do this. Al-Qaeda is in there saying they're trying to do that. The Saudis and the Iranians are in there trying to do this and that, especially over there in Sudan, another place that's going on, that's having their own issues over there. Okay? So I say all of that to now bring Portugal in without going much into the other thing that I've been talking about earlier. One of the things that I noticed about Portugal that impressed me, and I can sit down here and you've seen me do this before. Portugal has its own dark history when it comes to Africa. Okay? I don't need to go into all of that. We know this. And any Portuguese or any Madeirans who are watching me right now, it's a fact. Okay? And I think an honest Portuguese would say, yes, that's what our forefathers did. That's what, 400 or 500 years ago. But the thing about Portugal was one one of those countries that when the French, when the British, when other colonial powers were like, okay, we're done, we're out of here, we're out of Africa, Portugal still held on to its African colonies and went to war to make sure they weren't going to let go. Now, I should go ahead and disclaim that by pointing this out. Portugal at the time was under a dictatorship. So this was not the people going along with this colonization process. Okay? They were not sitting there like, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. and whatever. The people's voice was not a part of this. This, just keep in mind, Portugal had been under a long-running dictatorship. So I am sure the people from back then probably were in their minds like, hey, we look like the idiots here. All the other European nations, like, colonization is so yesterday, and we're still here doing this? No. So in 1974, with the Carnation Revolution in Portugal, they overthrew the dictatorship that had been in place for so long. And almost immediately, Portugal gave up its colonies in Africa, as if the people were itching for that to come to an end. But the dictatorship kept that strong control in Africa, and we're not letting these colonies go. No, 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 no. But that's dictatorships, okay? So I'm not pinning this on the Portuguese people, but the Portuguese government that was in power at the time, the colonial powers, you know, the dictatorship. I can understand that. Now, I mentioned in another video, would you have had Portuguese who left those places in Africa and moved back to Portugal that did not retain some racist ideas and so forth? I'm sure they did. You know, they were in Africa, they lived there, they were there while the colonial powers were there, and they probably developed their own racist ideas of Africans and Africa, and came back to Portugal with those same feelings in place and passed them on to their children and their grandchildren and so on. But I would not say this is the majority of Portuguese people by any stretch. Not to mention, young people always tend to chart a new course away from the old antiquated beliefs of their grandparents and so forth. And so now we're talking about what? Since the Carnation Revolution, yes, you still have people who are alive today who was there when that happened, you know, and may still have some old hang-ups from what their grandparents taught them. But I want to say you have, what, 2-3 generations since, and younger people growing up now who are more accepting, more open, and realize they live in a more global world right now, and have a whole different concept of looking at people and the world than perhaps their grandparents. But saying that now, one of the things that I do love about Portugal, that ever since that time, other than East Timor, Portugal has more or less stayed in its corner, minded its own business. It's a part of NATO, if I'm not mistaken. But for the most part, they have stayed out of the affairs of other people. Now, we're talking about a country that once ruled over a vast empire across this world, that did engage in slavery, that did engage in atrocities, that did engage in certain things, but also, and to some extent, united parts of the world. Brought spices and certain things that turned out to be beneficial. But we're talking about that country from hundreds of years ago. It's a country today that is just like it was way back when, before it embarked on the whole age of exploration. A country in southwestern Europe, down there minding its own business, doing its own thing, not bothering anybody, just there. And to this day, right now, it's like Portugal has returned to that. You know, they're not over there interfering and trying to spread democracy. They're not out there trying to spread socialism. They're not out there trying to influence anybody or going into other countries and exploiting and doing different things. Okay? Now, maybe there may be some cases of it that I don't know about. But for right now, Portugal seems content in, look, we need to take care of our own business. Let's mind our own business. Let's stay over here. Let's take care of our people. Let's invest in our people. Let's invest in what's going to make us a better country. Not being over in someplace else doing nonsense and trying to spread democracy, dropping bombs on people, droning whole villages, interfering, getting involved in proxy wars or whatever. It's minding its own business. It's staying over there. And the reason why I say this is because if I go to a place like Germany, if I go to a place like England, if I go to a place like France or even Denmark, there is this fear, even though these countries are wonderful and many of them are not known for high crimes and everything, but there's always this possibility of a bomb going off, some terrorist act taking place. And the reason for this is because there are people there who might be living in those countries, who might be visiting those countries, where their country is being bombed right now, or there's a war going on, and they're watching their brother die, their daughter dying, some drone strike or whatever, and they're angry. And now they're living or visiting or there for a specific purpose to take revenge and to take vengeance. And they do something, and you're on a bus, you're in a train station, something goes off, or someone with a sword, someone with a knife, someone with a gun, and they end up killing innocent people because they're angry. They know what's going on back in their country, and they're feeling that the country that they're in is responsible for what's going on back in their country. But in Portugal, I don't feel that way, because I know the country is not over there engaging in modern day atrocities or engaging in what would be considered criminal activity to try to restore order, to spread democracy. They're not over there doing that. Portugal is over there like minding its business. And I'm hoping that it continues to stay that way. And here's a reason why I say that, because Africa is full of resources. A lot of these nations realize it. The Chinese, on the other hand, have been doing it somewhat differently. Of course, with an ulterior motive. But I do commend them to some extent. They're going in and they're basically saying, listen, we're not coming in here we're not bringing in troops. We're bringing in troops of workers, but we're not bringing in troops with guns and bombs and flexing our muscles. They're coming in and saying, hey, you know what? I see you need a couple of hospitals. I see you need some new roads. I see you need a railway system. We'll build it for you. But we'd like to get some of your resources. Can we get some of that uranium? Can we get some of that cobalt? Can we get some of those diamonds, some gold? But in return, we'll build these things that you need, infrastructure that you need to then springboard into progressing forward. We'll give you those roads. We'll unite your country through a network of roads and highways and railways and so forth. So I can respect the Chinese in that regard. Again, they're ulterior motives. And there's always a debate on whether or not, when these countries, or if they default on their loans, what China will do after that. We don't know. There have been YouTube videos about it. Some may speculate what's going to happen. Others are just pure propaganda. Some of them are lies. And some of them may have some truth to them. Portugal, on the other hand, as a country that's trying to catch itself after a recession, I am just hoping that they're not a country that's going to go down there and decide they're going to go the way of the French. Please, Portugal, do not do that. Go the way more like of the Chinese. You go down, you make deals. Make them transparent. Make sure the local people, or one of the stipulations is that the local people have to benefit from this, and to keep everything above table. Not any backdoor deals where it enriches the president of some African country and his family, and the rest of the people are just struggling and are poor. That never bodes well. Because when the local people rise up and see what their president is doing, then it leads to what's happening in Niger. They're going to overthrow that president, and they're going to have resentment toward the country or countries that the president has been in bed with. And things are not going to end well. Okay? So when it comes to Portugal, thank you. Thank you. Yes, I do. I know I can go back through history and I can find things to point to and say, well, look, you enslaved, and look, you were the first to start the transatlantic slave trade, and you held on to your... I could go back to all of that, or we can go back to all of that. But my thing is kind of like, what have you done for me lately? And what you've done for me lately, and I'm not talking about me per se, but what you've done for me lately is mind your business, stay in your corner, take care of your people, find new and different ways on how to make money to bring your country back out of the depths it fell in a recession, and keeping it that way. And if you're going to go venture off into, and again, I can't tell a country what to do, but if you're going to go venturing off into places like Africa, the Middle East, or whatever, making sure that if you're making deals, because that's the way the world is, a symbiotic relationship. You know, you have to help each other. Hey, you have this? I don't mind if I can get that from you. but I'll go ahead and also offer some benefit to you. In Niger and in other parts of Africa, that had not been the case of colonization. It's take, one-sided deals. Take. And the people there are, and the local people that you're taking all these things for are poor. You're not seeing any benefit. Anyway, my wife is waiting for me. I told her to give me about 30 minutes to do a video. It's exactly 30 minutes, all right? So thank you guys for tuning in. There's a lot more that I could have said, but again, I hope I preface this video so no one freaks out and think that I'm some kind of militant, like, down with Whitey. I just hope nobody's thinking that, okay? Again, I'm not that type of person, so please do not project that onto this video, okay? I don't care who people are. I love people. I am a people person. I'll talk to anyone. Someone's sitting over there. If I see a flag in their car and it's from Armenia or something like that, hey, from Armenia? Hey, it's beautiful over there. I've seen some pictures of it. That's me. Look over there. I see someone walking by and they may have a flag on their body or their persons or in their car from somewhere like Thailand. I'll strike up a conversation. Okay? But the whole point of this video is I just want to say that in Portugal, when I go there, I feel safe. And I feel safe not because I feel safe in different ways. Of course, there's the safety of the local people that you might look around and like, hey, are they going to hurt me? No, I don't feel that at all when I go to Portugal and Madeira. Don't feel that at all. But in terms of geopolitics, I love the fact that Portugal is staying out of people's business, minding their own business for the most part that I know of. Someone may come in here like, well, hey, look right here, Portugal is doing, I don't know. But for right now, as far as I can tell, they're minding their own business, staying over there. So by doing that, gives them less of a chance for some angry person coming from some other country to come over and do some serious damage. And when that happens, then it starts to build up the whole anti-immigration thing, and then there's resentment, then there's tension, and before you know it, you have countries going to other countries to take revenge, blowing up places, and we're back to square one. Let's not go there. All right? Thank you guys for looking at the video. I really appreciate it. You can spread it, share the video. Please like, subscribe, and especially down in the comment section, I try to respond when I see people put comments in there, okay? You guys take care. Until the next video, from Matt About Madeira, appreciate you guys, okay? Take care. Bye-bye.